The struggle has been real with this. All right. So I kept running out of space and kept having to delete stuff after I uploaded it, of course. But now I have like 6 gigs, jigs, whatever you call it, jigs, we'll say. So I should be able to finish. So I'm trying to remember what we left off on. I know, just, dealing with like what's the root cause of the issues um, in our community. What is the major issues? When you keep going back, when you keep asking questions. Okay, he's in jail. How did he get here? He committed armed robbery. Well, it started as armed robbery. Then he ended up shooting and killing, 2 people. Okay. When he first entered into the system with being arrested. All this happened when he was 9. He was doing carjackings. In Chicago, 8, 9 years old, carjackings, that's not uncommon. We had shooting offenders who are like, it became a trend after like the mid 90s where kids under like 12-year-old were shooting quite frequently. I actually I saw a kid that couldn't have been, that kid couldn't have been 8 years old. It was like he was carrying a gun. The gun looked like it was the same length as his thigh. He was that small. It was a 9mm too. It wasn't a huge caliber. That was years ago. My sister was actually with me. If she ever gets to see this video, hey sis, you remember the kid you were relieving? You were on the porch, probably 25 years ago or better, maybe even 30, probably 30 years ago. And they started shooting. We saw the kid running down the street with the gun in his hand. So yeah, if you ever get to see this, sis, you should remember what I'm talking about. But you continue to ask the questions. Okay, how was his home life? Go back. Any trauma that he experienced, et cetera, et cetera. Who were the people who raised him? How did they grow up? What did they teach him? That's when you start to get to, oh, this is how you became that way. Because we assign, and that's one thing that I purely hate about our community. I hate that. I hate that we assign the blame to things or entities outside of our homes and our communities, where the behaviors are actually bred, taught, passed down. Reacting violently, being a tough guy, somebody that will bludgeon somebody that would shoot anybody. If you go across any of these communities across this country, you'll know that is a respected person. Nobody can be in denial of this fact. If you are, you're just stupid. If you don't realize and you don't see that and you live in one of these communities. If you don't live in one of these communities, then you're just ignorant. You don't know. And there's nothing wrong with that, but that's what we're here for. We're going to educate you. We're going to teach you so you won't listen to these professors and these think tanks, these independent news programs, or even major media news programs. You won't listen to their philosophy and their theory and their ideology, because it's all trash. It's not from experience. I'm talking to you from experience. I have experience in law enforcement. I have experience in the school system. I have experience in the mental health space. Years of experience throughout these spaces. This is not something that's foreign to me. This is not something that I can be philosophical about. This is something that I've actually witnessed and seen documented. Okay? This is something that I've discussed. This is something that I've met with community leaders to try to impress upon them on what they need to do to solve it, which is a cultural revolution. We need to get rid of all the trash that we could have continued to pass down to generation after generation. And we need to rethink. We need to teach. We need to have a whole new train of thought that we teach our people. And it needs to be based upon personal responsibility, on accountability, on respect, on love. Love. Man, one of the easiest ways to freak out another brother is to tell him you love him, man. You know what I'm saying? Like, brother, I love you, man. I love you, brother. I love you, man. Oh, yeah. Yeah. And that's not because that individual's a bad person or they're not willing to accept this, because they're going against their nature. Because you're taught that, not from your school. I've already mentioned and dispelled that school to prison pipeline. It doesn't exist. It's a talking point of the ignorance of the left who do not have the experience. The people that, I guarantee you that the people that came up with that idiocy were not the teachers, who on a daily basis are trying to teach, but they're battling against the culture that the children come from. They're always having to instruct them on how to positively solve disagreements and keep them from beating each other, which is what you're taught to do. And now, you know, we have so many issues working against us. We have the hyper emotionalism that is experienced by a lot of our men who didn't have that, who didn't learn that counterbalance that occurs when you have both a man and a woman in a home. So you have that sensitive side, and you also have that side that's just based upon based upon intellect and knowledge and reasoning and logic. You used to have a balance in between the two. Now you have the pure emotionalism without the logic. So you take a person who's grown up that way, who has never had to be accountable for anything that he's done, because of course mother is going to come and rush up to the school after he takes a desk and slams it up against another child's head. They go to the emergency room. His mother's going to come out and cuss out the teachers because he was a victim of bullying and they didn't stop it. And that was the reaction from it. Not knowing that he's been the bully the whole time. Well, maybe knowing, but we can't accept that. We can't accept that accountability. And we have to protect them. You know, we have to protect them from receiving any type of punishment for behaviors that require punishment. We don't want them to experience that. So you take this type of individual, you take this child, no emotional balance, used to reacting in most extreme measures, basically tantrums. You give him a decent size and you put a gun in his hand. And what do you think is going to happen? No discipline, no accountability, no responsibility for their actions, no teaching of what pure love is, how you purely love a person. And this is something that most, that's not me. A person should have a general love of other people's lives. You should actually look at a person and want them to prosper. I hate that MF. I F him up. That's not human. That's not normal. That is not normal. If it's a person that's trying to harm you, to have that type of aggression and that mental energy toward that person, that's something different. But a person that you know nothing about, and you could make that type of judgment, that's not normal. But that's the type of mentality that is passed down. Hyperaggression. How many stories have we heard over the course of years, especially since Jordans have been out, of somebody getting their shoes stepped on and that leading to a homicide? How often has that happened? Where is the sensibility in that? And what's the origin of that mentality that would cause a person to do that? So the average, not the average, well, probably the average of our people will probably look at that or hear that and be like, you know what? That's them schools, man. I'm telling you, them schools, man, because they criminalize behavior. That's usually the first introduction into the criminal justice system. The behavior, the schools did not create. The schools manage, attempt to manage, and they are hogtied and handcuffed against actually handling that type of behavior. They don't even have the resources to adequately deal with it. And that stuff happens way before those children enter the school. You can't come from a community that does not value life and expect to be able to teach mathematics and science and reading and English and history, and automatically those behaviors are going to be suppressed. It's not going to happen. That territorialism, I'm going to call it, just aggressiveness for no reason. Why are you looking at me? I heard this or such and such. You know, kids spinning other kids. Hey man, he said your mama such and such. You go up and punch him in the face. I never said that. I don't even know you, bro. What's your name? You know what I'm saying? Like, this actually happens. And this is no fault of the school. The violence is no fault of the school. The intro into the criminal justice system doesn't happen because of what a school did. It's because of the behavior that caused that school to contact law enforcement or what have you. It's the behavior that puts you in jail. It's not a system. It's not a system. How many folks, and of course, you know, this is a dangerous question to ask, because the average of a lot of our people will say, oh man, it happens all the time. And I'll say, prove it. Prove where a person has been straight laced up and down, like this happens on a consistent basis. Not that it has ever happened, but this is something that happens all the time, where a person that does not commit offenses against the law, who shows respect for people and their property and just goes about their daily lives trying to improve themselves and move forward, that they are railroaded by this system? Or is it the people that have constant interaction with law enforcement because they're breaking laws, because they're committing criminal acts, because they're hurting people? We're going to have people still who are going to argue that those 8, 9, 10-year-olds, the youngest I've heard so far, it may have been a 7-year-old, but I think it's 8. I think it's 8 is the youngest that I've heard personally so far, 7 or 8, committing carjackings in Chicago. So there's somebody that's going to argue that that's because of the school. It's because of what the school did, not what the community has done. Not because there's somebody who should be accountable for their whereabouts at all times, especially at that age, who's not doing their job, who has not taught them respect, who has not taught them the value of hard work, who has not taught them the value of being a good person and how good things happen to you when you do right. They've never been taught those things. That's the issue in our community. We're creating new criminals all the time. We're not disciplining our children. We let them grow up with no accountability. We protect them when they're hyper aggressive. And then when they have a showdown with law enforcement and they use all of those tools that you have taught them from the home to prison pipeline, and this results in them losing their life, then we're going to blame the system. But it's not the system. It's not the system. Could it have ever been? Maybe in another century, maybe centuries ago. But the home determines the success of the child. The nurturing, the culture of the home, the education that the children receives, their outlook on life is sculpted and created within that house. The way that they perceive other people, looking at them as not animated object, but as a human being with a life and a story and a struggle, similar to mine. Being able to see those things occur when that home is in order, when those good things are taught, when they have the safety and security. When you're in a neighborhood, because it happens to all of us, this is not something that, I came through, I never had to, up my aggression. I never had to do these things. That doesn't happen. That doesn't happen in these major urban cities. Even a small you can go communities like Greenwood, Mississippi. They're shooting up places like that now. You know what I'm saying? So it doesn't. It's where our people are, and what our subculture dictates, and what we've all married ourselves to. Because the subculture at one time was the subculture. We didn't think like that as a group of people, but now we're all in on the protect them as well. You can't protect somebody. You shouldn't want to protect somebody who doesn't have the care and the admiration of another person's life. I just looked at that situation. I'm not going to even call it by that, because I actually know a person that lost their life because of it. But a young lady recently lost her life doing her job in Chicago, and she was murdered by people who have multiple violent offenses in their background. I know we were talking about the system and the part that it takes. It doesn't take a part in locking up and throwing, black children away. The way that it affects the neighborhood, the communities that it's supposed to serve and protect, is not by railroading the kids. It's by not prosecuting them. And this has been a historic truth. I don't know where we get this information. And that's why I say this, these news forums and these people that have these positions who could speak truth to people continue to teach lies. They continue to instruct the people with lies. And the folks are too, I don't want to call you all stupid, but that's tight though. That's tight. They're too naive to know better. Hopefully it's naivety. Oh my goodness, I hope it's naivety. Oh my goodness, I hope it's naivety. Historically, within my entire life, I've seen folks commit violent crimes, shooting people with the intent on killing them, attempted murder. When I tell you a few years later, I passed them in the street like nothing's happened, I'm like, what the? I'm thinking you're going to be gone at least 10 years. 10 years of peace of this person that you know is callous in what they feel for another person in their life. You know what I'm saying? Like when you don't grow up around these people. Like I know a good brother who talked about a guy, and he called him the devil. I grew up in a community of devils. It wasn't one guy that I knew. There were people that would go shoot, kill somebody, and make jokes about how they looked when they were shooting them. Oh man, their faces all twisted up. He's screaming, he's talking about, man, I'm sorry. I said, that's nothing. That's nothing to the people who commit these acts. It's nothing to take a life to them. And this is not something that they learn in the school. It's not something that's a system. It's something that the community instructs. Coming up in this type of environment, regardless of how good you are, it's going to affect you. I'm aware of people. I didn't see them actually commit the act, but I'm aware of at least 2 people during my childhood and my little neighborhood. I'm talking about a 2 or 3 block radius, who killed themselves because they couldn't put up with the pressure of having to put on this face on a daily basis to be able to just go out in the world and do something that they should be able to do without these type of issues. I was talking to somebody that, they're from a mixed suburban community in another state, and they have no experience as far as the Black urban experience. They haven't a clue. They never had those struggles. They went to a majority white school. They never had to deal with any of this, so they have no clue. These are the people that seek out this information, though. They're looking, are good educated folks with these advanced degrees. They're looking for somebody to come up with some type of false data that they can believe in to exonerate the community from any responsibility for the acts, when the community is almost entirely responsible. I can't say that they're wholly responsible, because we have other folks who come in and who instruct us, and they're not from our community. They are not. This is the reason why this happens. I'm a psychologist. I have all of these years of experience. They're reacting because of this, because of what they, these things that they've gone through. I dealt with people, with these type of people who had absolutely no respect for human life on a daily, consistent basis. It never put me in a position where I wanted to harm people. I was always on the defensive. I never became the offender. Never became the offender. But of course, you're going to step your game up. You're not going to weasel out of confrontation. You're not going to say, hey, listen, I'm just going to go through the neighborhood. Somebody want to jump on me. I'm just going to ball up and take the stumping, and just, I hope I'll make it. Be like, no, I'm not taking this. At a certain point, any and every kid, if they have to pick up a gun, I'm not gonna take this. I'm not dealing with this, man. I'm gonna go about my daily life still as a productive citizen, but I'm gonna be ready for when, these people who are not raised come for me. So that's another way how we affect other children who could, these could be our scientists, our doctors, our propulsion engineers, our master coders, our investment firm directors. These could be these people, but when you have that burden of, I could possibly die today by violence in my neighborhood because they're always shooting. There are people that don't like me. When you have that burden on your back and you're still trying to get it, that is something that is extremely hard to overcome. And that's something that none of our children should have to deal with. This should not exist. It shouldn't exist in any community, anywhere. But no measures are being taken to circumvent it, to reverse it. No measures are being taken to put in any type of security in our neighborhood to make sure that our children are protected. Now, we can rally in the tens to hundreds of thousands, maybe even millions across the nation, though. If there's a questionable incident involving the police, we can rally for that. But for the 700, 780, 750 to 780, 750 to 780 lives that were lost in Chicago, maybe 770, I can't remember the exact number, and the 4,100 plus people who were shot, mostly in the Black community in Chicago on last year. We can't rally. We can't get together to solve that. And listen, I don't even want to talk about it. This is the attitude of Black people. I don't even want to talk about it, man. Why are they always focusing on black crime? Why is that always, that's all you see on TV? That's a lie. Now, I know I had mentioned this earlier. Chicago experiences on average, especially during summer months, you have low weekends, and I'm talking about weekends, a 2 day period, solid 2 day period, starting Friday night, ending Sunday night. You know, a good weekend, which is sad. It's a bad weekend, but um, some of the lowest numbers that you'll see in the 30s, mid 30s, shot, maybe 5 to 6 killed. But during the course of the time I grew up in Chicago, before, you know, the crime started declining like the past 4 years, um, 55 to 65 and 10 to 20 of those murdered every weekend. 55 to 65 shot, 10 to 20 murdered every single weekend. Every single weekend. Now, to peep out of our so-called political organizations, no Al Sharpton. I forgot the lady that made the Cadillac commercial. No her. No Black Lives Matter. All of these community organizations or national organizations, whatever they're supposed to be, who could mobilize all of these people who have this type of following, who could redirect people's energy to something positive and could actually solve a lot of these issues, you won't hear a peep from them. Philadelphia crossed 500 murders like last week, I believe. 500 murders. I'm not sure if that's a record, but I think it is, or it might be close to one. I remember watching a news segment where the guy said we thought 1990 was bad. So you're talking about crack era violence. They just surpassed. Women, I think it was so many women that got killed there in 1 week, shot down in the streets. Children are being killed. Little bitty babies that don't have nothing to do with nothing. 2 years. We had two 2-year-olds shot somewhere. I can't remember. It was in the same city, though. It could have been Chicago. This is happening all the time, and nobody mobilizes to do anything about it. Nobody says, "Oh, you know what? This is a major issue. This should be our number one focus." I know, you know, you have the reparations group, you have the, you know, police focus group. You would think all of these groups would get together and say, you know what, man, did you see the study that came out? Black men ages 0 to 44 years of age, the number one cause of their death is homicide. Oh man, we need to call out all the stops. We're calling on, you know, President Joe Biden, the Democratic Senate. We're calling on them to meet with us to devise some, you know, some laws in order to tackle this this emergency situation. We're calling on them to fund these security organizations, departments, you know, to fund new security departments so we can have these patrols to assist the police. You know, we're calling on them to hire more police. We're calling on them to keep or make laws stricter. We're calling on them to create federal law to hold states attorneys and district attorneys more accountable for them continuously releasing violent criminals who commit acts sometimes within several days of being released from the criminal act that should have given them 5 to 10 to 20 years in prison. You know, all stops should be called out on this issue, and nobody's talking about it. 4 black women a day. 4 black women a day. We don't even have the stats on the children. We see the news stories though, because that's the one thing that they will report. They're not doing 65, and that was, you know, what the hopefully naive person was talking about. You see it all the time. You don't. If you look at the spots for the violent acts on any given news program, you're going to have up to maybe a 3-minute spot, tops, on those crimes, right? You have 15 murders, sometimes 20 something. It was one weekend in Chicago where it was 100 and something shootings, and I forgot the murder total was ridiculously high. I think it was a record for Chicago. It was a holiday weekend though. Let's say we just do the basic 15 to 20. We'll use 20. We'll use that good round number. So you have 20 homicides. So are they spending an hour just talking about homicide on any news program? If you've seen a 1 hour segment that just hit every single murder that happened in that neighborhood within that last few days or that week or that weekend, please comment that in the comment section with the link, because I would love to see that. That never happens. You might get 3 to 5 minutes for total incidents in a city. They're not hitting everything that happens. They were like, we had 55 people shot and 15 killed in Chicago this weekend, blah, 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 blah. Of those, there was an 8-year-old, mom loved her. Everyone in the community said she was sweet. Then they'll interview 2 or 3 people, and then they'll end it with the police chief talking about how this is more than just a law enforcement issue. We need to work together. Telling the truth basically about the issue, because he knows, even though he has the political handcuffs on him, he can't say what the truth is. He knows that it comes from the community, and that it's a community and a home issue. The killers come from the home. They're grafted in the home. Those experiences, the traumas that they receive to make them callous, to make them not care, those happen in the house. It's not school stuff. It's not system stuff. It happens in the home. It happens in the neighborhood. The little girls, our numbers in little girls who are molested, who deal with sexual trauma, are higher than any other community in the country. Where do you get your numbers from? Where do you get your numbers from? That's what you hear. It's documented. You have to go through and scrutinize it. You could choose what you don't want to believe in. I've seen the documented statistics, and I've also seen half a century of life of meeting different women who have confided in me and found out that this is crazy. When you look at, let's say, a group of 10 female friends, and there's 2 out of that group who has not been molested, and one of those 2 had an attempt, but they were stopped before it was successful. And you're like, what the?